good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are. Let's get started. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining to talk about Rome today. I know there are some of you who this might be your first destination debrief. So before we get started, I'll tell you a little bit about what these are. So obviously, welcome to Fora. You are a travel advisor. You are here to learn about different destinations. The reason that we do these debriefs, whether this is your first or whether you're somebody who saw the way that we used to do them and how we've shifted them, is to really try to give you a good sense of like, how do you present this destination to your clients? How are you, when somebody says, I want to go to Rome, whether you've been 15 times or you've never been at all, how do you explain this as a destination? And one of the ways we've shifted is it used to be really just like a rundown of all the hotels. And we realized that what cannot be so helpful is like, I know a lot about the hotels, but I don't really know about where people should eat or the neighborhoods or what they do while they're there or how long they should stay, even stuff like that. There are some cities that are great for 5 nights. There are some that I'd say you're good with 1 night. So we have shifted these debriefs around to really try to equip you, the travel advisor, with everything that you're going to need to know in order to get your client ready. So thank you so much. Again, whether you are somebody who is here every week or you're someone who has just come on or it's been a while, thanks for being here today. With that, let's start talking about Rome. Well, what are we going to cover today? Like I said, this is the new destination debrief, which has been going on for a while, but in case you hadn't seen it, how to stay, how to get there, all the simple itinerary stuff, as well as some hotels. But we love adding in now a little bit more about films to watch, day trips, trips to add on. Most people aren't going to Rome alone. And actually, most places people are doing something and something else. And then the if not Rome, which is where we talk about what else to do if somebody's like, I love Rome, but where should I go next? So let's just start with, why do people go to Rome? Rome is obviously very dear to the hearts of us here at Fora because we are named after the Roman Forum. If anybody remembers the jokes about men being obsessed with the Roman Empire, my co-founder Evan is certainly one of those. He is indeed obsessed with the Roman Empire, and we named Fora after the Roman Forum. Fora is actually the plural of forum because we wanted to envision Fora as a place that, like the Roman Forum, was a travel experience, but was a place that people would come to do business, but also to build community, to chat with a neighbor. And that's really what the Roman Forum was. So Rome is very important to us. I love the city because as much as I love like the museums of Paris, I'm like a child. I have a very short attention span when it goes into museums, which is why guides are important for me. But Rome really is an open air museum. It also makes it really great for families that are traveling because you're getting that history and that sort of look at what the Roman Empire was like just walking around. So you can sort of absorb a lot of the culture and a lot of the architecture and the history without necessarily spending a lot of time indoors at museums. We love that. Obviously, the food is great too. It's very romantic. We send lots of honeymooners here in combination with the Amalfi Coast. And 3 to 4 nights is typically how long to go for. You can go back to Rome again and again, and you are not going to run out of things to do. I actually generally caution people to not overly schedule their trips when they're planning. If you try to do every single thing that there is to do, you're going to end up not really having that time to just enjoy the city. So when you're talking to clients and they're like, great, I want to do the Colosseum and the Vatican and the Forum and the Appian Way and the Borghese Gardens and all of this, tell them, hey, you'll probably go back to Rome. Let's find a way to give you something to do for part of the day and then give you part of the day just to explore and go do a little bit of shopping, a little bit of eating, all of which we will also talk about here. How are you getting there? FCO, it's a big airport. Everybody's flying into there. This is probably the most well-served airport as well from the US. So this is where, depending on if you're flying from New York, great, you've got connections into lots of different Italian cities. If you're flying from many other cities in the US, I was actually just looking at this for a client, most of your connections are through Rome. So Rome is the airport you're going to fly into. It is also a hub for getting almost everywhere else in Italy. So if you have people who are connecting through here, this is the airport they're going to be using. 45 minutes to an hour, typically, with the traffic getting into the city. There is actually a train that runs from the airport into the city. I'm going to be honest, and as many times as I've been there, I've actually never taken the train, which I should probably do because I hate that traffic on the way in and out. One question, actually, before we move away from the airport, this comes up all of the time from clients. Like, is there just a hotel? Like, let's say they fly in, they do Rome, and then they go up into Tuscany, and then they're flying back out of Rome because that FCO is the major airport that they're using. Is there just a hotel near the airport that's decent that I can use? Not really. Unfortunately, there are airport hotels, but there's no like, oh, this great place that's actually really close to the airport. I wish there were. Now, When to visit, we all know, right? Italy's very hot in the summer. No surprises there. I still, enjoy being there in the summer. But spring and fall are just wonderful times to be in Rome. There are less crowds and it's still really lovely weather because it's sunny and wonderful. So I would say ideally spring and fall, but certainly most of your clients are probably going to be going there in the summer. Winter can be great too. I love a festive trip to Rome. I remember once one of the hotels put up like a whole Christmas tree for a family in their room because they were there over the holidays. It will obviously be warmer than many places, at least here in the Northeast. So it's a great place to explore for the holidays as well, keeping in mind that certainly things are closed around Christmas and New Year's. What are our top booked hotels? I loved looking at these because there's such a variety here, right? You've got like Chapter Roma, which is I think one of our top booked hotels overall, super boutiquey and chic. The Hoxton, sort of one of a less expensive but designy place to stay, as well as the Edition and Six Senses Rome, which are, Six Senses Rome is one of the most like high end hotels that opened in Rome recently. And that's one of our top sold hotels. So it's clear here we book a lot of different things in Rome. One of the other things that I'm excited about in Rome with hotels opening is how many of them have opened recently and are coming. Back in the day, and I've been a travel agent long enough to be able to say this, back in the day, we really struggled with hotels here. It was one of those cities where like Paris and London and even Florence, we had like all of these really great hotels. And there were like, for the high-end traveler, it was really hard to find like a lot of options from hotels. And it lacked those really sort of chic and stylish boutique hotels. There were some, but there weren't enough. And so it's so cool to see all of the stuff that's happening now because we've had many open up and many more that are going to be coming online. Keep an eye on La Minerva. I am really excited about this one. Orient Express, which is the brand owned by Accor Hotels. Have the Orient Express trains, which they're bringing back, not to be confused with the Belmond Orient Express trains. Totally separate, same name. I know it's confusing, but Orient Express, the brand that is owned by Accor, is actually bringing back Orient Express hotels. And La Minerva is going to be the very first of them. So that's pretty exciting to see. Okay, your neighborhoods, most people, Rome is a very walkable city. You definitely don't want a rental car to be driving around here. You're going to mostly do a combination of like walking and, catching a taxi every now and then. Most people are going to be in the heart of Rome because you're going to be able to walk everywhere. But this is a good sense of if people are asking about the neighborhoods that you can share of understanding like what it really is. Like Trastevere is very charming, not quite in the center. Great restaurants, feels a little bit more like, sort of the West Village version of Rome. Vatican City, it's totally separate. It's a little bit farther away. So this is going to give you a sense of what these neighborhoods are. Most of the hotels, though, are in the historic center. Sample itinerary. I really think, particularly in Rome, this is helpful to think about because people are coming here and saying, but what am I doing while I'm there? Now, most folks are going to come in and maybe spend their first day a little bit jet lagged. So it depends on how much they want to add that first day. But let's just go through assuming that you're not super tired when you land or you're coming from somewhere else. Colosseum. Everybody should go to the Colosseum. Yes, it is actually that cool. If you have a client with a big budget, we have incredible guides that can do really cool private tours with exclusive access. Also, I will tell you the tour that I did at the Colosseum was I did a group tour with Context Travel, and it was only 6 people, and it was totally fantastic. So lots of ways to do it, but I do think the Colosseum is a great one to do with a guide because it really explains I'm looking at the shell of a building, but what was it? How do I understand it? That is a half day event because by the time you do the Forum as well as the Colosseum, you're exhausted. So tell your clients, just book them a nice dinner, let them explore. So day 2, let's talk about the Vatican Museums. Vatican Museums, Sistine Chapel, St. Peter's, it is huge. You are going to want to go early because the crowds can be big. Are there exclusive things you can do here? Absolutely. One of the coolest things I've ever done, and clients love it, is there's actually a mosaic school at the Vatican where they make the artists that make the mosaics that the Vatican gives as state gifts to heads of state from other countries. You can go and do that. You can go into St. Peter's via a different door. You can also just do it the regular way. Just remember that these things are important to plan ahead and to get access tickets. The Colosseum runs out of tickets. The Vatican runs out of tickets. So make sure you plan ahead. Then spend your afternoon doing something that's a little bit more relaxed, explore some galleries, go see the famous fountains, take your pictures, and then we're going to talk about the food later. I can't get enough of food here. Vespa tours. Let's put this in. I love adding this in for clients to do something a little bit different. It makes for obviously great photos, but also is a fun way to get around the city and see things without doing so much of the walking. If you have clients who are mobility impaired or pushing a stroller, it's really challenging in Rome. So anything where those cobblestone streets are going to be tricky, this is also an awesome way to go and tour the city without having to actually manage the walking along some of those streets. And you can go into a sidecar and they're driving the Vespas and it's really fun. And then shopping. Of course, there's great shopping here. Everything from the big brands to really cool small boutiques. And again, like with everything here, Italy is great with kind of the behind the scenes when you have clients that are like, but I want to do something nobody else can do. You can do that here as well. Villa Borghese, to make it very convenient, Villa Borghese, there's the Museum of Villa Borghese where you have to get specific tickets. I think they are timed entry even, and they do sell out. The Villa Borghese Gardens is like the central park of Rome, and they are gorgeous. There's even a zoo in there for kids. Remind people to spend some time, just go wander around, especially if they're there in the heat of the summer. Go and just sort of explore the park, take a nice walk. Now, what are we doing? This is a little bit more that you can share over here. Spanish Steps are obviously, they never look that empty, but you're obviously also going to want to go take the picture. Here again, is that just a little bit more background of each of the things to understand what your clients are going to be doing. Cooking classes. This was not in our itinerary, but it should be in most people's itinerary. If you're into food, doing a private cooking class is really fun. And usually they do it not in some cooking school. Often it's in an apartment. And that can be really great too, to go do the food market with the chef, go in and actually spend some time in a home. These are a few of the best shopping areas. So Via del Corso, which some of the hotels that we're going to talk about are right around there. This is a little bit more of the big brands. Same with Babuino. Babuino is a long street that runs sort of from the Spanish Steps up to it's that palazzo that's with that thing that's by the Hotel de Russie. Again, higher end designer shops. Via Giulia is a place that I love. I'm a terrible shopper, but I love finding places that are a little bit unique. That's when I sort of get going on the shopping. Via Giulia is in a different area and it feels much more, it's like antiques. It's more small jewelry shops. These are the places where you're going to find the smaller brands that you may not see somewhere else. I still regret not buying something from what's store there a few years ago because it's not going to pop up somewhere else. I love that neighborhood for exploring. So big designer shops, you've got it over in Babuino and Corso, but head over to Giulia for the smaller stuff. And then a market. Who doesn't love a market? This is a long list of restaurants. I'm not going to go through all of them, but we really wanted to give you a sense of, like, most people are going to have 3 to 4 nights and they should plan their dinners ahead of time. These are the ones that come up quite frequently, and you're going to want to, you can sort of throw these at a client, whether you're planning their dinners or you're saying, here's a great list. You can share this with your concierge to figure out where you want to stay. Roscioli is controversial these days, I know, because it has gotten so popular. I still love it. I know we had a couple advisors who were there recently who said they didn't feel like it was as special as it used to be. It actually has opened in New York now too. And I don't know. I still love it. And the Roscioli family has opened they have a place that you can just pick up pizzas to go. They have a coffee shop. They've definitely expanded to become a bigger empire, but I still kind of like it. And Pierluigi, it's funny. I found out about Pierluigi from a travel writer who is really into food. And I had asked them for a client who said, they want to get dressed up. Like in general, Romans dress nicely, but like this is like, they wanted to have a big special meal out. And he said, Pierluigi and amazing seafood. And then, so I sent the clients there and they loved it. And then I went on my next time. It is fantastic. It has just a beautiful little plaza to sit out on. A few more ones that are more Michelin starred when people are looking for that. I feel like often folks want a balance of just some like really normal, casual Roman food with maybe one Michelin starred. And then who doesn't love the gelato? One thing I always like, gluten-free gelato. This is, as somebody who isn't gluten-free, I remember going into Fata Morgana and seeing that and being like, wait, this is great. And then I was like, wait, is there a lot of gluten in normal gelato? I actually don't know the question, but let me tell you, Fata Morgana is out of control delicious. I'm not even an ice cream person. So these are ones, again, cocktail bars, places to go for drinks. There's a great cocktail scene in Rome. Have these to share around. This is supposed to make your life easier so that when you have a client going, you can be like, here's some ideas. Now, let's get into the hotels, because as much as the city is about the food and about the what you do, it is also about staying somewhere really great now that there's all these great places to stay. So JK is sort of a small hotel brand. There's JK Roma, there's JK Capri, and there's JK Paris. They are sort of this very chic, almost like masculine design, like rich woods and darker colors, just some of the most stylish hotels, honestly, anywhere in the entire world. I'm obsessed with them, and everything is so well thought out of it. It is this for the client who like wants to make sure that anytime they want to hang up a towel, there's a hook there. Anytime they go to put down their handbag, there's a table there. It feels so well thought out, and it's also just like barely marked. So you could walk right past JK Roma and not even know that you're passing a hotel. It feels more like a membership club. Incredibly chic. If any of you have been around travel long enough to know that there used to be a JK Florence, well, it's now called The Place. That was technically owned by somebody else, and they ended up splitting them up, but similar vibes. If you love JK Roma, you love The Place, and we all know how much we love The Place. Hotel de Ricci. This is one that is part of Fora Reserve, and that I'm excited to highlight because you have probably never heard of this tiny little hotel, except for if you're paying attention to Fora Reserve, where they just joined. This is a hotel that is wine themed. The GM is a sommelier. They can stock the rooms with your client's favorite wines. If you guys know Jake Peters here, our CTO, he's basically a sommelier himself. He was supposed to, and unfortunately just had to cancel when he lost his childcare. He was taking his wife here as their special getaway, because this is the place for people who are like serious lovers of wine or want to learn about wine and also love really cute boutique hotels. So it's just a very different kind of experience. I love stuff like this because it's a real flex. Like, your clients may have heard of some of them, they may have heard of a Rome edition. They have probably not heard of the De Ricci. And when you explain this to them, whether they themselves are like big wine people or just like curious about it, this is a great place. Also tends to be a little bit less expensive than some of the sort of super luxury spots. And I just love it. It's really unique. Speaking of super luxury spots, we can't not talk about the Eden. This is part of Dorchester Collection. And yes, it is one of the ultra luxury spots, and it is gorgeous. Okay, service is unparalleled. They just take care of everything. It's amazing. Renovated a few years ago, which it did really need. People would still stay here because the service was so good, but it did need that renovation. And they have this partnership with a like pool club. It's kind of like a country club that's about 15 minutes away. So when people are asking for hotels with pools, which is like hard to come by in Rome, this is one where it may not be on site, but if you've got a family staying there and they are great with kids, great for honeymooners and couples as well, but great for kids, this is one where you can actually go out and spend a day by a pool, and it's all organized by them, which is amazing. Now, this is, if you're thinking about location wise, if you were standing at the bottom of the Spanish Steps and you kind of looked up, and then there's the road that goes to the right, all around sort of on that side of the Borghese Gardens, that is where the Eden is. So it's close to everything, but just enough removed that it feels a little quiet. One thing to know is there's Sofitel opened right around the corner from there. For those who like that location but don't have the budget for the Eden, the Sofitel is great. So keep that one in mind too. A few other hotels that we love. Portrait, I will call out because Portrait, kind of like JK, feels very like member club. Like, you can barely, when I went to tour it, I couldn't find it. And I realized I was just walking back and forth in front of it. It's not really a full service hotel in the sense that I don't even think they have a restaurant. They have a place where they serve breakfast. It feels just very chic and stylish. It's owned by the Ferragamo family. Couldn't be more Italian. Six Senses Rome, one of our top hotels. This one, when it opened, I think we all went, Six Senses is a wellness brand. Like, what is it doing in a city? It has done so well. Everybody who goes really loves the fact that they can have an urban hotel, but also with that sense of wellness and sustainability and spa time, like very sort of nice and quiet and relaxing in the middle of Rome. And same with the Intercon. Intercon is one that might be a little surprising to you to see on here. Intercontinental is a brand where there are like really, really, really great ones, and there are some that are like, this is one of the really good ones. It's new. They're opening really good new ones, and I am super excited about it. We booked this all the time when it opened because it was just like a less expensive option that was still a really good hotel. So I think the prices have gone up, but they're still not up for some of the other ones. And then the hotel in Palazzo Villan. This one is the Villan literally shares a wall with JK and has a very similar look and vibe to it. So like they are next door to each other and have a similar thing. The thing that I like so much about the Villan is they have these suites with really large terraces, like big terraces with like table, chairs sitting outside that overlook a courtyard of a building that's right behind it. These are awesome. If you have somebody who says, I want to do something really special, it's a proposal, it's something like that. These suites are the ones to put people into. I know that's very specific, but I like book this hotel for this room. And then St. Regis, it's you either love the location or you hate it. It's right near the train station. If you are going to be taking the train, maybe from another city or from the airport, or you're leaving from there, you're going Rome, Florence, it is so great to be really close to there. And it is one, they did a renovation. The renovation is, mwah, it is amazing. And that was really excited. Chapter Roma, obviously, we already talked about that. Babuino, I'm going to highlight this one. Babuino 181 is actually one of 5 properties owned by this family. They are all around, obviously, Babuino 181 is on Via Babuino, and they're all right around there, including some on some of the side streets. They are generally kind of like not full service hotels in the sense, like, again, they might serve breakfast, but they don't have full restaurants. I don't know if I can't remember if it had a gym or not, but really wonderful, really well priced, like really well located. And I love it. I actually, true story, pulled the sheets off my bed when I stayed at Babuino years ago because the mattress is so comfortable. I wanted to see what it was. And it turns out it's like something that they make for themselves. So it's like this kind of insidery Roman thing. I don't need to go through this food. I'm just going to get hungry, but you know what it is. It's all amazing. And the dress code I do think is worth mentioning because you're going to be walking a lot as a traveler there. So remind people that to like no high heels, it's cobblestones and lots of walking, but also to know that if you are going to be going in churches, which you probably will be, you should have something even in hot weather to cover your shoulders and to not wear short shorts. Leave those at home, ladies and gentlemen. All the rest, I think this is pretty normal. And let's go into a bit about the dining. You know the food, but what I want to talk about here is a little bit about how do you prepare your clients for the dining hours, because it's not Spain late in terms of how late they eat, but dinners are, if you book like a 6 p.m. dinner, a lot of restaurants don't even open by then, but also they're going to be the only ones there. So the aperitivo is like your happy hour. That is where you get to go out, and typically Italians will go and have a small plate of food and a drink. That's like your pre-gaming, your dinner. So that can help get travelers through, remind them of that at the end of the day when they're kind of ready to go out, have an aperitivo, and then book the dinner reservation more around 8 or 9 p.m. Otherwise, you're going to be all on your own. Lots of great cocktail bars, obviously, that we talked about earlier. It does tend to go slightly later here. So keep that in mind when you're planning. Shop hours, also, they may close obviously on holidays, but also may have afternoon hours that they close. So just keep this in mind when you are planning a client's itinerary to account for times for closures. Actually, just bouncing back to the food for a minute, and I say this always to clients in Spain as well. It's like day one and they like landed early, they've been going all day, they are exhausted, they want to not wait until 9 o'clock at night to eat. That's okay. Hotel restaurants do serve earlier. So remember that. And by the way, JK has like amazing food. So if they're staying there, go get like a casual spaghetti. You'll be fine. Films, TV shows, and books set in Rome. There is no lack of content around Rome. And this is something I actually got a call from the Rob Report last week who wanted like the travel agency world to weigh in on what they called set jetting. So set jetting apparently is the term for, we watch a show like, White Lotus, and then we all want to go to Sicily. And so obviously there's lots of set jetting when it comes to Rome. The one that I'm going to particularly highlight on here is the Great Beauty. If you haven't seen it, and we talked about this in our meeting here because people had not heard of it and I couldn't even remember the name. And then I found it. It is a true like love letter to Rome. It's all filmed in Rome, and it's all about this sort of aging writer who's been kind of a bon vivant, and like him looking, sort of reassessing his life, but like his true love is really his city. And it's an amazing movie. So send this to clients because they may not have heard of it. It is in Italian. You can read the subtitles, but it's just a really great one that I like to share to travelers who are going because it makes you want to be there. Few things that happen in Rome. Okay. Holy Week is a big deal. That probably goes without saying, but it's a good thing to remember. It is very busy during these periods. Now, if somebody is going for them, fantastic. If somebody wants to avoid the crowded times, which will drive hotel prices up, restaurant reservations are hard to get, all of that, keep that in mind. Jubilee is going to be next year. This will make Rome both more popular in terms of folks who want to be there for the Jubilee, kind of like a Paris Olympics in that sense. Like some people will go for it and some people will want to avoid it. So just remember this. This is a very special Holy Year in the Catholic Church. So there will be a lot of people coming in. I would expect Holy Week to be especially crazy then, but just remember that these are the things that impact. I love the idea of a Roman marathon. Find yourself a client who wants to go run it. Now let's talk about day trips. This is a big part. Many people will say, okay, I'm going to do like 3 nights in Rome, but actually I'm going to do 4 nights because I'm going to do a day trip. Where are they going? These are some options that are going to be relatively close by, and you can do via train or via car. Let's talk specifically about Pompeii because this one will come up again and again and again. Okay, Pompeii. These are the ruins. We all know the story. Mount Vesuvius exploded, and then so you have this like sort of perfectly preserved. It's very sad. Like like forms of people who got buried by the ash of this volcano, and it's incredible. It is truly one of the most like remarkable things that I have ever seen. I remember in like 4th grade, I built some like model of Mount Vesuvius, where it would like explode if I put in the baking soda. And going to see this as an adult was it's like really amazing. You can take the train down. You can also drive down. I encourage the train. I do think this is one of those places where it is so helpful to have a guide. So I really encourage clients, even if they're like, no, we're super independent, we don't really care. The Colosseum, it's really nice to have a guide, and Pompeii, to have somebody really tell you the stories of what you're seeing when you walk through, explain what the homes were, explain what some of the murals are that you're going to see on these walls. It's just the preservation is incredible. And you used to, I wonder if you still can actually be able to walk up Mount Vesuvius up to the top where you can see smoke coming out. I did that. And the other thing is it is super hot. So if you were doing this in the summer, just get ready to bake. So make sure that you're bringing like sunscreen, hats, all of that. It really should be on everybody's schedule. The other way to add this in is they're doing it more as a day trip and then moving on is you can do Rome. And then you have them go down. And this, if they have a lot of luggage, I would do it like hire a car for the day, pick them up, drive them down to Pompeii. They do Pompeii. They can meet a guide there to do Pompeii and then take them on to their hotel on the Amalfi Coast. So this is a great way to like bring in the itinerary and make it seamless rather than like down and back and all of that. But it's just super, super cool. Other trips to add on that are within Italy, because again, most people aren't flying all the way to Rome to like eat some cacio e pepe and turn around and go home. So where are we adding? Well, lots of it is very easy. And I really encourage people to do this by train. It's not that these trains may not be like the Emirates version on the ground, but they get you places and they get you there without the traffic. So Florence and Tuscany, only about an hour and a half by train. I have a good friend who lives in Florence. She goes to Rome all the time, the same way I would take the subway from like downtown to uptown. And also this is the opening bid on Tuscany, right? So if you have somebody who's going to be doing a Tuscany trip, they actually could do the train do a couple days in Florence and then rent a car from there to go out to Tuscany because you won't want to rent a car out there. Amalfi Coast, we already talked about that. Bologna for the food. Milan, 3 hours by train, so not that far. And Venice may look very far away, but actually via train, not so bad. So I typically would say when people are talking to me about Italy, they come and they're like, I want to do all of Italy. I'm going to do Milan and Lake Como and Venice and Borgo Ignazia and Puglia. And I'm going to go to Sicily. And you have to be like, yo, do you know how far apart this stuff is? It's kind of spread out. So I try to like parentheses around different areas. So northern Italy. Okay, you want to do Venice and the Dolomites or Venice and the lakes or Milan and the lakes. Okay, let's like sort of put those together. And so typically when somebody's going to Rome, I'm saying, okay, maybe Rome and Florence, with some Tuscany or Umbria, or Rome and down south to the Amalfi Coast and over to Puglia, or Rome and then you're flying out to Sicily. You're using this as a jumping off point, or Sardinia obviously is so hot right now. I think it's going to be Sardinia is going to completely blow up next summer. So you can do it. If somebody's really dead set on like, I want to do like the grand tour of Italy, you can do this you could do a Rome and a Florence and a Venice, and you can get there all on the trains. Just be prepared to be a little cultured out. Lake Como, I wouldn't recommend going via train because you're going to have to stop. You'll go into Milan and I think you have to get on a different train, but you totally can too if you want to do all of that. If not Rome. Why not? Because I've been before, but I love it. What did you love about it? Well, I love the food and I love walking around and I love the history. What are the other places that are like that? Lisbon does well with people who love Rome. Lisbon is closer. Lisbon tends to be a little bit less expensive. There are less like super high end hotels in Lisbon, but it's still got a lot of personality. Now, one thing to note, Lisbon is obviously it's smaller. There's like less to see and do. I'd say this is like more of a 3-nighter, not a 3 to 4, or even 5. This is like a 2 to 3. But Lisbon has a great food scene and beautiful views. You're on the water. I love Lisbon, and you can use that as a jumping off point to the rest of Portugal. Montreal, if they're looking for that experience of being in Europe, whether it's Rome or Paris, and want something a little bit closer to home for an American, Montreal's really great and really easy to get to. If they want something a little bit cooler, obviously Copenhagen. And then Athens is the obvious place with so much of that history and that architecture that you're going to go and do. Obviously, like Rome, most people aren't going to Athens just to go see the Pantheon and leave. You're going to do Athens and then the rest of Greece. All right. Thank you all. Have a wonderful weekend. And for those of you, whether it's your first destination debrief or your, 100th, thank you for being here. Bye.